Red salutes to the comrades who have gathered here, and my thanks to the organizers of International Red Help who have invited me to address you. Comrades, as you know, the revolutionary movement in India is going through an extremely critical phase. It is under severe attack by the Indian state on the one hand, and at the same time, a bunch of leaders of that movement have betrayed the party and the people and have either become instruments of that state or have surrendered to save their own skins. So in this situation, it is extremely important to understand why these developments are taking place. There are various aspects to it. Politically, the maoist movement in India represents the most significant, the most important, the most serious challenge faced by the Indian ruling classes. This has been noted by their political leaders and their ruling class intellectuals quite long ago, because they see that this movement, which is consistent in its ideological political positions and has never compromised on them, despite all betrayals, all treachery, it has always stood firm on these positions. And today, when the Indian ruling classes are facing a crisis, when their legitimacy has been challenged and various contradictions have sharpened within society, and also when they are facing a lot of pushes and pulls at the international level, and that old game they played of manipulation, of maneuvering rather than manipulation, of maneuvering between various superpower blocks by utilizing their contradictions in order to serve their own comprador needs. When the room for that is extremely shortened, it has become all the more important for the ruling classes to establish their domination by all means. And that is why the ruling classes quite consciously elevated the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, also known by its abbreviation RSS, or also the Sangh Parivar, the fascist organization, which has always been a servitor of imperialism. This is why the ruling classes and imperialism elevated it to the position of administration, of running the government at the central level itself. We must keep in mind that the ideology that is espoused by this organization, an extreme form of Brahmanism, is not unique to it in its Brahmanism. It is the extremeness is of course unique to it, but the Brahmanism is not. Brahmanism has always been a part, or has always been at the core of the ideological outlook, world outlook of the comprador bourgeoisie and the feudal landlords, right from the very beginning, even during the British period, when the subcontinent was under British colonial rule. And it has become the ideology of the ruling classes since then. Now, this Brahmanism is not the Brahmanism of old. It has been modified in accordance to the needs of coping up with the necessities of the modern period, but it is still Brahminism. It has not abandoned its core concepts, which is of patriarchy, of the most inhuman caste system, of ethnic oppression, national oppression, and so-called supremacy of those who come from purified, so-called purified status. So this Brahminism, this extreme Brahminism, is extremely fascistic in its characteristics, and that we can see today. For some years now, we have been seeing it here in this country, of how Dalits, religious minorities, particularly the Muslims, and women, and ethnic minorities like the Adivasis, are being oppressed, how they are being attacked and murdered. Now, the ruling classes very well realize that the Maoist movement is the most serious challenge to this, because in the areas where the Maoist movement was strong, particularly in Dandakaranya and Jharkhand and certain parts of Bihar, the ruling classes were not able to carry out these fascistic activities of attacking the people, and therefore this is also sending out a signal to the whole country that ultimately this is the only way to respond to or stand up to the fascistic attack and to end it forever. So that was a major political reason behind the onslaught of the ruling classes on this movement. And this is not only politics in the sense that of the propaganda being done by the movement, but it is also being realized in a new society being built up in that area, particularly in Dandakaranya and also certain regions of, as I said, Jharkhand and Bihar, where new forms of political power had emerged. They were popularly known as Jantana Sarkar in Dandakaranya and revolutionary committees in the other parts, that is Bihar and Jharkhand. This was a new political power formed through the destruction of the old power, and it allowed the people of that area, of those regions, to exercise their power, to protect their resources, to use the resources to the best potential, conserve the environment, end patriarchal practices, protect traditional culture and develop it according to the needs of the new times. So in all senses, it represented the new society that could possibly emerge all over the country if the despicable and anti-people state was overthrown through a new democratic revolution. So this was the political reasons behind the attack, continued, sustained one after the other, the attacks launched by the Indian state against this movement. And as you know, several comrades have been martyred, including Comrade Basavaraj, the then secretary of the CPI Maoist. But apart from this, there is also another important economic aspect, which is that these regions are the most rich in minerals and various other resources. And as the crisis of imperialism deepens, the imperialists are in a rush to garner, to corner, and to extract as much as possible so that they can revive or at least recoup some of their profitability of their own industries, particularly in the face of the intense competition, the contention that is developing among the imperialist powers. So we can see that right from the early 1990s, when this globalization, liberalization and privatization program was initiated by the then Congress government under the dictates of the IMF and the World Bank. These regions, we saw a huge number of memorandums of understandings being signed between Indian corporates, Indian computer bourgeois monopolies, who were also closely collaborating with various imperialist firms, transnational corporations. Memorandums of understandings, MOUs, which would allow them to plunder the resources of these regions. But despite the signing of all these MOUs, of thousands of rupees, crores of rupees worth of MOUs to extract these resources, they could not do that precisely because of the presence of the revolutionary movement existing there, the powerful revolutionary movement existing there. All their efforts were beaten back. And this provided encouragement, inspiration, and motivation to people of other regions who were not directly linked to the revolutionary movement or those areas to resist. So all over the country, it was a beacon for all those who were opposing and struggling against the policies, anti-people policies of the state. So this was another important reason for the Indian state to conceive its suppression, encirclement suppression campaigns with full support and assistance from US imperialism, and utilizing the guidance and services of its settler colonial state of the Zionist state and of the Mossad and of its armament industry to carry out the suppression. For example, in this Dandagaranya area, they had built fortified armed camp practically every 3 or 4 kilometers away from each other, so that the whole area was encircled with a huge military force, and along with that a huge paramilitary force. Then the local people organized into their voluntary squads. All of this was used to consistently, continuously attack and suppress the movement. Now, the setback that has been suffered by the movement presently is not just because of this attack, as I mentioned earlier, it is also because it has been aided by the treachery of some of its leaders, Sonu and so on, who have now become instruments of the Indian state, pleading for a legal return to legality, so to say. Now, what is this legality that they are asking for? It is something that is non-existent as far as any serious movement, any movement challenging the present setup is concerned. You can have a formal protest and all that, but once you go beyond that and start challenging the real class interests of the ruling classes and imperialism, then they come down with brutal force. And that goes on every day as we see around us. So therefore, all this talk of legality is nothing but an attempt to divert the movement away from the path of Naxalbari. This has happened before in the early 70s. It has happened several times, but on each and every occasion, the movement has succeeded in overcoming it and rebuilding itself and pushing forward. And we can be sure that that's going to be repeated again, because as Comrade Charu Majumdar long ago had stated, facing some severe losses, Naxalbari will never die. So with those words, I am concluding. Lal Salam to all of you.